Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Favorite Albums Through the Decades, the show that we're doing throughout the month of May, where we look at a band who's been around for multiple decades and have released albums in 3 or more decades. And we're going to pick our favorite albums from each decade that they released an album in. Long-winded intro there. Butch Jones in the co-captain's chair today.
Hey.
What's happening, my friend? How are you?
Howdy.
Doing good. Good.
Good.
Yeah, just looking to talk some Accept here. So before we went on the air, Butch and I were like kind of thinking that this is going to be probably a fairly easy task for the most part. You know what it is? This is like a sandwich with kind of like, very predictable bread on the outside and some interesting stuff on the inside.
Right.
So the band started in the 70s with only one album.
Yep.
They've got one release in the 2020s. Some good ones in the 2010s, nothing in the 2000s, and a whole bunch of interesting things in the 80s and 90s. So,
especially the 90s is really, ooh.
Yeah, the 90s is a little difficult, right? It's like, what do you pick, right? In the 80s, good decade for the band, although for me, I think it's a pretty easy choice, but we'll see, right? So let's get the obvious one out of the way first. So obviously, the 70s, we only got one album, right? We have the debut from 1979, which I'm not a big fan of.
No, yeah. I think I've got it on vinyl in a different cover.
Yeah, they have
a yellow.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's not good.
There's a couple okay songs on here. It's got that kind of like the early Scorpions with Uli in the band. They have that kind of Teutonic sound.
Yeah.
Trying to go for that on here, but not quite as successful.
Right. Yep.
For me, until they hit Breaker, I don't think this band really started clicking on all cylinders for me. But as a cool curiosity in their discography, hey, whatever.
Gotta have it.
Gotta have it, right? So now we get into the meat and potatoes here.
Yes.
So now we're gonna move into the 80s. So what is your favorite album from the 80s?
Gee, it could only be one. I guess it could be two. It could be three, but
right.
For me, there's Restless and Wild. It's I mean, honestly, what you just said is the reason why this record is so tremendous to me. From the first record, which, honestly, like none of us started with the first record. That's the thing. We went back. So you either started with Restless and Wild or Balls to the Wall, and then you went back and then you're like, ooh, this isn't so good. and then you hear Breaker, you're like, okay, this is different. All right. And then Restless and Wild comes in, it's one of those things, where were you, or can you remember when you first heard Fast as a Shark? And everybody's mouth dropped. If you're a metal fan, you heard that, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yep.
And then it was over. And this to me is pretty much a perfect metal record from 1982. Man, that record is I listened to it again today. It's just mean.
It doesn't get old. It doesn't get old.
No, Wolf Hoffman is just killing.
And you have the US the CD. So I had that on LP, and of course my CD is with the European cover, which is okay, but that's the one, right?
But you see, I'm the other way around. I mean, this is the one that, and on vinyl I have the original cover, and but on CD I have this. This was what was given to us as kids. Yeah. But I like the other one because it was the one that you didn't get.
I guess. I mean, it's cool for what it is. But I have a soft spot for that, I guess.
That's just a great picture. It's like, man, look at these guys. They look crazy.
I know. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how, and there's probably not a lot of them, but there's certain albums, I think, in the history of us, and I don't just mean you and I, but I mean like, aging hard rock and metal fans, when we remember when those albums first came out, the first time we heard them. And I remember specifically where I was, whose house I was in, who I was hanging with when he dropped the needle on that record, and you hear that, scratch at the beginning, Heidi, and you're like, what the hell is this? And all of a sudden that scream came in, that riff came in, and that was like, your life was not the same after that, right?
100%. Yep.
It's like it was this with that. It was the same way with that Queensryche EP. I mean, I could think of a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
But like there were certain albums, because we didn't know who these guys were. We had no clue who Accept was, and it's like, and I think that back in the day, you had no choice but to take a chance on going to a Record World or a Rock and Roll Heaven or wherever that sold imports.
Yep.
And you saw what you have, that album cover, and say, you know what? This looks good, heavy, right? I'm just going to buy it. I don't know what it is. I've never heard of them before, right? So,
and if we were fortunate enough to have Kerrang! Magazine, which was the first place I saw anything, I still have the issue with Wolf Hoffman on the cover with the flying V, like going down, like towards the ground, towards his feet and stuff. And they talked about this record because it was 82 issue of Kerrang! And it was on their top list on everything. And I'm like, who's Accept? They're above Iron Maiden? It's like, come on, 80. It's like Number of the Beast. And then you hear this, and I know I'm not the only one. The first time, like you said, putting the needle on the vinyl, and you hear that German, I guess it's like a nursery rhyme kind of thing or whatever. And you had to have thought, wait, is this the right record?
Yeah.
I got the wrong album in this. Like, oh my God, what's this? And then, like you said, and then the scratch and then the scream, and then you're like, oh man. Just great memories. Good memories.
Yeah, it's like the heaviest thing you'd heard at the time, right? Or close
Absolutely.
to it. And then, you looking back on it now, it's obviously not, but still pretty impactful. Yeah, and I mean, props to Balls to the Wall and Metal Heart, and Russian Roulette's got some pretty decent stuff on it too. But yeah, to me, it was all about this one. All about
absolutely. Yep.
All right, now on to the 90s. Here's where it gets interesting. So a lot of lineup changes, and Udo's coming and going, and some sort of okay albums, some not. What do you think for the 90s?
And an album that Peter Baltez sings all the vocals on. Just like, wow. And you call it, it's like, so for me, it's Objection Overruled. That was, for lack of a better term, the most Accept album of the 90s to me. And it's some great stuff on this record. I mean, it definitely sounds like Accept, just the title track, Objection Overruled, is a great song. And Wolf Hoffman gets some great stuff on here, man. It's still easily one of the most underrated, most not talked about metal guitar players of all time, as far as I'm concerned. Guy still puts out phenomenal quality stuff. But yeah, Objection Overruled for me, without a doubt, is my favorite album of Accept in the 90s. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and forth between that one and the one I ultimately picked, which was Death Row, which was the follow-up to Objection Overruled.
Yep.
I think for me, they're the two that I'm okay with in the 90s.
Right.
The others are very, very spotty. And I would say that this album isn't a great Accept album, but it's decent. Sodom and Gomorrah is a cool track. The Beast Inside, the title track. Like a Loaded Gun is kind of cool. There's a lot of songs on here. I mean, it's literally like, this is like a 70-minute album. And this is one of those, I mean, I talk about it all the time, how in the 90s, like every band was like, okay, we have the CD era is here. We can fit almost 80 minutes onto an album. We're going to do it. And it's just like, by the time you get like 50 minutes, 55 minutes through it, you're like, whew, I'm exhausted already. It's like, it's just, so a little bit long, but not a bad album. I mean, both of the albums we mentioned, I think, are pretty decent.
Yep.
Not classic Accept, but pretty decent. If you're gonna investigate any albums from that decade, those might be the two best choices.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So then, of course, the band breaks up. They're not doing anything in the early 2000s, and it's not till 2010 where they make a comeback. So, and they've got a bunch of albums in the 2010 to 2019. So, what do you think for that decade?
The reunion record with Martinello from TT Quick. Always gotta mention TT Quick. That's it. It's just tremendous. And honestly, it was back and forth between that, and I love Stalingrad.
Yeah, me too.
I went back and forth, but yeah, Blood of the Nations, because it's just got some killer. No Mercies on that, and I mean No Mercy, No Shelter. No Shelter's on that, and that's just classic, unrelenting Accept. And Tornello sounds, I love Martinello. We're from the East Coast. And, so I grew up with TT Quick. It's still one of my favorite bands, one of the best New York, New Jersey bands that should have been. Legendary. And I'm really glad that he got a shot, because he sounds very similar to Udo. He did in TT Quick. And he's a better singer than Udo. Udo's got is classic because he was Accept, but singer's a singer. Mark's a better singer. And I love this stuff. And again, Wolf Hoffman is the wild card. He's still writing the great riffs. He's still shredding. and the production, Andy Sneap.
Oh yeah.
If Andy Sneap's involved, the record's going to sound phenomenal, and that is exactly what Accept needed to come back. They hit the ground running. I love that record.
A huge sounding album. I think all of them since the reunion, and with Mark on vocals, all sound very similar, very gigantic riffs. I mean, just in your face. It's my choice as well. By the way.
Yep.
And again, Stalingrad is amazing as well. Yep. I mean, I think all of the post 2010 albums are really good.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
They're almost kind of interchangeable in spots because they're all so enjoyable. They all sound very similar. And again, there's something to be said for that, right? You got the guitar tone on every album sounds exactly the same. And it's what you want from this band. And Mark's awesome. And he's a good, I mean, I've seen him live numerous times with him, and he's a great frontman. So yeah, I mean, everything you mentioned, Beat the Bastards, Teutonic Terror, Time Machine, Kill the Pain. I mean, it's just a lot of really great songs on here. The title track is awesome. Great.
Oh, absolutely.
And the band now can go and play all sorts of these newer tracks, and it makes up 60% or 50% of the set list, and everyone's cool with that, right?
Yep. So stuff is good. That's the bottom line. If it sucks, no one would care. The stuff is great. I mean, I know that there's people out there that don't want to give it a chance because Udo's not in it. Udo don't sound great, and I like. I mean, there's a guy that puts out a record every 6 months. It seems like all the records Udo's done,
and they're all live albums.
And they're all live albums now. Exactly. I'm not doing any more except I'm going to do 15 live albums, and then I'm going to stop. But the Udo stuff is great too. It's heavy as well. Yeah. But the Accept man, if you're an Accept fan in your soul and you really haven't listened to the newer Accept just because Udo's not on it, at least listen to that with open ears, and I think it'll bring you back into the new Accept world because it's that good.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Good songs, good riffs, great production. I mean, I get the people who are like, well, maybe they should call it something else, it's because it's only really Wolf left. And I get it, but it still sounds like Accept to me. And they've been doing it for so long now. I mean, we're talking 11 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like it just happened 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. And you know what? And I think if they were a bigger band, then that would be where maybe they shouldn't call it Accept anymore because it is just Wolf. But, Tony Iommi did it too. And he definitely should have called it something other than Black Sabbath at a point. But it's Tony Iommi, he's in Sabbath. What's the difference? Yeah. So it's the same idea.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we got one in the 2020s, obviously. So by default, Too Mean to Die, which is the latest one, just came out in January, I believe.
Yep.
So obviously it's a little bit early to be doing this, but a fantastic album as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have listened to Man, Zombie Apocalypse, The Undertaker, Symphony of Pain, just crushes Samson Delilah, Too Mean to Die, Overnight Sensation. I mean, the lyrics are a little silly. I think the only thing that I probably have fault with, except in this later incarnation, is the lyrics, especially the last 2 or 3 albums, are a little juvenile.
American.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they are. Not every song, but I mean, come on, there's Sucks to Be You, there's Not My Problem. I mean, there's some lyrical content on this album that's a little lackluster, but the songs kick ass. I mean,
exactly.
That's the thing. So I tend to not pay too much attention to lyrics anyway. It's not really my thing.
Yeah.
You notice them, but it's whatever.
They're TT Quick lyrics that are written for Accept.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is. It's kind of what he did in TT Quick. They're not awful, but they're a little on the juvenile side.
Yeah, they
are. He has. I mean, at least he's got something to say about whatever he's talking about in the modern world and that kind of thing. But yeah, I totally understand what you're saying for sure.
Yeah,
but the riffs are there, so that's
all. And it's another really big sounding album.
Absolutely,
heavy as all hell. So and I love the cover too. It's very cool. So
it's mean.
That's right. That's right. There you have it, everybody. So down in the comments below, list your favorite accept albums, accept doesn't accept albums, but accept albums through the decades, and see what you come up with. I think everybody might be fairly similar to us, but you never know. The 80s are interesting because I know a lot of people are hugely into balls to the wall, and 90s is like kind of like a crapshoot.
Yeah.
And the 2010s, it gets interesting again. So put them down in the comments. We'll be checking them out. I want to thank Butch for joining here today.
Thank you.
We're going to come right back next week. The two of us are going to do the same exercise. We have roughly 2 weeks left in the month for Van Halen. So that's coming up next week. We got, that'll be interesting as well.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that and a lot more here on the channel. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. In between now and then, stay tuned. Butch and I will be returning on Monday with the rest of the Hudson Valley Squares. It's Monday night, so stay tuned for that and a lot more on the channel. I am Pete Pardo for Butch Jones. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.